Greetings, everyone. This is Rock and Roll Rock Connection with the weekly comic book roundup. Yes, we're a little late. We're a little late this week. Again, there were personal reasons that are nothing to worry about. They can't. There were reasons that this week's roundup is delayed, and it's nothing to worry about. But yeah. Anyway, let's get started, shall we? Get things off with Excalibur number 24. So where we left off, while on a fact-finding mission into Otherworld, Excalibur was attacked. So we begin with a quote from Le Mort d'Arthur, by Mallory's Le Mort d'Arthur. For with Arthur was none other life but war and strife, and with Sir Modred was great joy and bliss. So, Captain Britain, Betsy, goes to Sevolith, the vampire kingdom of Otherworld, to speak to contacts his Oblis and Oscura, the twin regents of the realm. She asks questions of them, and they answer but tell her nothing. You know how that goes, Riddles, very vague metaphors. But in the crooked market, it turns out that Gambit has been getting stuff from Earth for those who live near the crooked market, which Jim Jasper does not appreciate. And hey, Gambit even offers to to get Jasper some good English tea from back home. Something as a way of saying, hey, sorry, I was cutting in on your mark. I wasn't giving you a cut of what I'm making in your market. And before opting to, give Jasper his cut on the regular. But Jasper says, no. You don't do business here. But in Roma's kingdom, in the floating kingdom of Romopolis Regina, Jubilee is talking about, the fact that Shogo, her son, really loves it in Otherworld, and that he's always so fussy on Earth. But let's explain that it's because that's where he belongs, is in Otherworld as a dragon. But and she's eventually you will have and Jubilee is somewhat accepting, but she does also state that for now at least she does want to raise her son, and she even admits that yes, she is being selfish about it. But I would honestly say being motherly towards one's child is not being selfish, but that's my opinion. In what used to be Dryador, Richter, Shatterstar, and what was her full title? And they are basically looking to see how the area has fared since the Iraqi marched through it, and nothing. It's a wasteland. Elsewhere in Sebolith, Captain Britain has met with Death, Apocalypse's son, Death. Excuse me. They have a telepathic discussion about what intel or what Death has heard about goings on involving the assassins. Um, and apparently, Death is quite taken by. Is still quite taken by Storm. As Captain Britain notes that Storm was right. Storm was right about him. He is a charmer. And his response is, Lady Storm, she remembered me? But they camp outside of the Starlight Citadel before the trial of the false Captain Britain begins. Multiversal anomalies of Richard, Gambit, and Rogue, who apparently are Captain Britain. There was a fourth that was initially Jubilee, but Monarch, J.D. Braddock, caused that version to no longer exist. But Betsy from Earth 616, our Betsy speaks in their defense. But before the trial can continue, Merlin arrives, most unwelcome. Well, apparently he has Arthur and his army en route to the Starlight Citadel. So Excalibur goes out to meet Arthur. Fight begins. Because, well, yeah. These things always have a fight. But Merlin is cryptic, basically saying, you didn't used to listen to the mutants, but now you do. What's wrong with you? To Saturnine. But he escapes, and yeah, that is where the issue ends. Very interesting. Very interesting. I really appreciate seeing Death, and it's amusing to me that he's still enamored of Storm. Then yeah, it's been a little while, but seeing the it hadn't been too long, but seeing that the Merlin Arthur plot point being picked up on. Also learning more about the whole thing of, Shogo's a friggin' dragon in Otherworld thing. That was nice. That's one of those things that, it's kind of, to be fair, in the more than 2 years since the first issue came out. Oh, no, actually, I think we are at about 2 years. I don't even, it's even been 2 years. Now that I think about it. But in the time since the first issue came out, Shogo being a dragon kind of went from, why is Shogo a dragon, to, oh yes, Shogo's a dragon. He's also a baby, but but in other words, he's a dragon. So I appreciate that something it's being brought up again. It's kind of like, yeah, we didn't forget that we never said why. So yeah. But yeah, Excalibur's for a solid book. It's a consistent good read. I think this is probably one of the better issues. Anyway, moving on, we've got Hellions, number 16. And before we get started on the issue, we also have a variant cover using artwork from the Marvel Masterpieces card set from the early 1990s. The set was all painted by artist Joe Jusko. I want to say there were maybe 100 cards, but I think it may have just been 90. But yeah, this was his Psylocke. In this era, basically Betsy Braddock's mind was in the body of the assassin Quenon. So yeah, it has since been remedied, and both women are now in their own bodies. But where we left off, Mr. Sinister took one of his clones to the Murder World clone farm because he had started work on something fascinating. He had begun work on chimeras. But, and the idea they were going to destroy the whole thing. Basically, the team was going to basically destroy the entire clone farm as a way of saying fuck you to Sinister for well, using them repeatedly and being a shithead to them repeatedly. But Qui-Gon stopped them because Sinister has her daughter there in the clone farm. But turns out that Empath was Empath's placement on the team was one for him being, well, a dick, and two, as an insurance policy against Sinister from Emma Frost. And he made havoc, destroy the clone farm. And so, the issue begins. The various chimeras that Sinister was making, which were combinations of his genetic material as well as Tar and the Uncarings, have been seemingly all been destroyed. Qui-Gon's fine. The team's fine, more or less. Grey Crow's cybernetics are a little dinged up, so he'll probably need some work. Danny very nearly kills Sinister, though the Scarface clone escapes. The X-Men show up because, well, they're in New York. And Scott, trying not to be a jerk, asks if everyone's okay, and, well, yeah, no, they are not. But, in the healing gardens, they're being taken care of, and Grey Crow makes it clear that as soon as he's patched up, him and Empath are going to spend a long time together where no one can hear. But Orphan Maker, Nanny lashes out at Orphan Maker. There's also a letter from Beast to Emma Frost. And he, you know, it's partially because Beast did kind of, Emma did kind of rip on him for his whole, for the Terra Verde thing, explaining that, he, that had his high horse not thrown his shoe somewhere near Terra Verde, he'd have words with her about what happened in Brooklyn. But he believes that maybe the Hellions could work, and it was the only bright spot he had left, and he hopes that Emma does right by them. That someone does. Yeah, because he doesn't care what they've done. They're mutants and they deserve better. But Qui-Gon tells Wild Child to get away from her because the whole thing's over, and she's even she's not feeling it. But she goes to talk to the Cyclops about everything, explaining, that hey, basically why it was she was willing. But he said, he realizes that that there's things she might know that or might be privy to that would make her from her association with Senator and kind of dirty her. And she'll have to talk to the council about that. But she's not happy with the fact that while she had been tasked with keeping the Hellions in check, she's not happy with the fact that there was someone else that was set up to do the same thing. But Havoc goes to speak with Emma, and she truly does feel bad for him. She does sympathize. She truly does sympathize with him, but she gives him something to look forward to, saying that she will personally bring up the question of putting Madeline Pryor through the resurrection protocols. But Emma gives Empath the run of her palace because she'll be elsewhere, but he might not be the happiest person there. Meanwhile, Grey Crow is patching himself up. Telling Wildchild exactly what his plan is, and Wildchild straight up tells him they'll throw you in the hole. To which Grey Crow simply says, "They will, and I'll laugh all the way down." Meanwhile, if this is something that was established previously about Nanny, I had no idea, but it turns out Nanny, before her powers manifested, was a scientist working for the right. And that the AI that she has liberated from them was in part her creation, but her ex-husband has hacked her ship, and she explains that. But not only that, but apparently it knows about Stacy X's mutant orphanage on Krakoa, and so he plans to crash Nanny's ship into the orphanage. And it takes the little AI from her. But before the ship can crash into the mutant orphanage, Nanny initiates a self-destruct. Orphanage goes to console her from the wreck, but she tells him to run away, and yeah, the issue ends with a quote from her. "In my sorrow, I broke the boy, but I had no idea what he'd do." That is where the issue ends. With the fact that Hellions is ending in 2 issues, seeing where everything is kind of where the chips are falling before the finale is interesting, to say the least. I sincerely hope that Grey Crow doesn't end up in the hole, because his arc through the title has been great, and I want to see someone pick that arc up in another title, because he deserves better. Havoc, God, Empath needs to be brutalized beyond belief. Personal opinion, but yeah, oof. Yeah. Moving on to our next book, we've got New Mutants number 22. Where we left off, Scout had been resurrected. Her friends had, said, okay, they were wanted to, had realized that things had gone a little too far. Meanwhile, the New Mutants team went to, decided they were going to go have a chat with the Shadow King. So the issue begins with the Shadow King showing the New Mutants the worst of Krakoa and Doomsday scenarios. Basically, Krakoa attacked by... How do I put this? Oh, yeah. Everyone. Sentinels. The Brood. Limbo. Araco. Yeah. Like I said, everyone. But, the Shadow Children go to talk to they're kind of referred. I presume that's what the others. The Scout's friends go to talk to her. And they said they're going to go tell Fruit that, hurting her was wrong and that, they won't be training with him anymore. And they, basically kind of, hey, look, what you're doing is wrong, and we're not going to have any part of it anymore. And, but yeah. So, but Shadow King and the Mutants continue to talk in a more peaceful environment. And Shadow King explains that, Xavier's dream is great, but, it won't last. All that's going to happen is that, we'll become soft, and when our enemies do finally say, okay, let's raise the island, we won't be able to defend ourselves. So he's trying to harden the mutants up, but, they're kids, okay? Let them be kids. As Scout's friends head off to talk to the Shadow King, though, she talks with Jonathan the Wolverine and decides that she's going to go with them. She's going to face Shadow King herself. But, yeah, the talk between Shadow King and the New Mutants continues. He forces the New Mutants to see various scenarios in his for each of them in his Doomsday scenario, and when the kids arrive at the Wild Hunt at Shadow King's palace, he finds them standing. They find Shadow King standing over the unconscious New Mutants, basically plugged into their heads. Of course, when they get there, there's a massive telepathic backlash, which does injure some of them. It causes Rainboy to lose cohesion, and it does kind of fry No Girl. But Cosmar is able to help Rainboy pull himself back together. And that is where the issue ends. Should be interesting to see where this story arc, how this story arc concludes. I'll admit the pessimist in me agrees with some of Shadow King's points, but one point I don't agree with him is that is calling Xavier's dream weakness. Well, maybe not his current, but. Yeah, it's definitely making for an interesting story. We go to our next book, Deadpool, Black, White, and Blood, number 3. That's right, the Merc with the Mouth is back in 3 colors. Black, white, and red. So, our 3 stories, we've got The Worst Convent in the World, written by Jay Baruchel. Yeah, the actor. Drawn by Paco Medina. The Bet, written by Frank Thierry, and drawn by Takashi Okazaki. And The Perfect Ones, drawn by Stan Sakai. Well, yeah, written and drawn by Stan Sakai. So, we'll start with the worst convent in the world, which begins with Deadpool arriving at a convent. And there's a nun who escorts out a penguin. This is apparently Deadpool with having the two different thought boxes. Yeah, pink ones and white ones. Turns out that the convent is actually a neo-Nazi front. But flashback to a week ago, Deadpool kills a bunch of guys on a boat, delivers their bodies and decapitated heads to the Smiling Lemon Resort. The manager says, no. I didn't want you to bring the decapitated bodies and heads here to the resort. Well, I did, but not in the lobby. Turns out his pay was for a penguin. And the penguin convent took his car, but they were unable to get the penguin. But Deadpool goes to check it out, and one thing he notices is that all these nuns at the penguin convent are walking around carrying assault rifles. They got a lot of guns, a lot of ammunition, grenades, and a lot of angel dust. One of them does have a Hitler stash, so yeah. But brutal violence ensues. Skinheads pretend to be nuns are slaughtered. Deadpool frees the penguins, and flying back on a jet, he's talking with the penguin, and turns out the penguin can talk. And can hear Deadpool's dialogue boxes. And that is where the story ends. Fun little story. So then we've got The Bet. Yes. Deadpool and Bullseye both been hired to kill a guy. Yeah. So they're competing with each other, slaughtering through the random, the henchmen, the ninjas, the zombies, the sharks, the monkeys. Trained both with melee weapons and at poo flinging. By the time they get out of the monkey room, Bullseye states he's pretty sure that he's more monkey feces than man anymore. But there's a gas in the room which kills him, the last monkey, which is stuck on Deadpool's back. And it seems to be almost about to kill Bullseye, but, well, not Deadpool, because, that healing factor of his. Deadpool goes into the final room where the target's waiting, only to find the target dead. Shot in the head. By Domino. Who came in through the back door, and therefore didn't have to wade through ninjas, zombies, sharks, monkeys, and gas. Oh yes, and one of the sharks bit off Deadpool's arm. But, yeah. Domino gets paid, gets the hit, and yeah, it's... it's rather amusing, yeah. Finally, we've got The Perfect Ones, or How Deadpool Got His Swords. The most important Deadpool story in the history of Deadpool stories. So we begin with I think the proper name would be a Morning Star, but the ball and spike ball chain handle, yeah. But yeah, not really great when you're a little wild with it and you smack yourself in the head. Switches to an axe and a helmet. Fights the guy with the hammer. The guy with the hammer manages to lose, but only just. Deadpool considers the hammer, but it's like, no, been done. 6 shooters. He blows his toes off. And so, fighting samurai in Japan, because why not? The katanas. Because it was not just simply a case of, well, swords were freaking cool in 90s comics. No, it was, he fought samurai somehow in the modern day. And in modern Japan, maybe. And yeah, it was like, hey, katanas rule. And that is where the story ends. But I really dig these Black White Blood minis. The Carnage one, I was admittedly, that one was kind of a, sometimes when it was good, it was really good. But yeah, so more often I was kind of eh. The Deadpool one's been consistently good the whole time, just like the Wolverine one was. There's an upcoming Electro one. We'll see how that one plays out, I guess. But yeah. Anyway, moving on to our next book, we've got Magic the Gathering, number 7. And that's our Planeswalker our Hidden Spark variant. Looks to be Jaya Ballard. But where we left off, the Hospital of the Frozen Heart in Ravnica had been revealed to be a front for the Cult of Merit Lodge, which, as far as anyone knew, had last been seen during the Dominarian Ice Age on Dominaria. But they had sown all manner of discord throughout Ravnica. They had destroyed the Dimir Guild, vandalized various things for the other guilds, or vandalized the various other guild sectors, and even seemingly brought down Jace Beleren. And they had managed to do all this while placing the blame on the Dimir. They were discovered by Ralzeric, Guildmaster of the Izzet, Kaya, Guildmaster of the Orzhov, and Vraska, Guildmaster of the Golgari. All 3 of them were planeswalkers as well. But the trio had managed to convince the rest of the guild chairs of what's going on. That Ravnica's under attack by a cult from that at least at one point was on Dominaria, thousands of years ago. So they're going to deal with it. But they put it all together and realized that, wait, the cult likely has members in all of the guilds. The more time we take, the longer it takes for us to attack the hospital, the more prepared they are. So the trio goes to the hospital, and it turns out that they kill all their patients as sacrifices for power. It's a Merit Lodge thing. But the Azorius law mages show up to arrest them, and, well, shit meets the proverbial fan. The Boros come. Throughout the city, we've got reports of attacks on the city's infrastructure, fires in several districts, Celestia and Gruul monsters loose on the streets, rash of assassination attempts. Niv Mizzet also gets involved. We get panel with some evolved Simic warriors battling invading cult mutants. In Rick's Mahdi, Rakdos makes his feelings on competing cults known. In Concordance, the Celestial Hunters struggle against perversions of the nature they hold dear. In Nivix, the is it Majorites test their inventions on invaders, putting themselves in as much danger as their enemies. Field tests. I'm just imagining the. I'm just imagining the. Is it Matrix be like, hey, field test. In Orzhova, the cult mutants discover that there are far worse than themselves stalking the halls of the Orzhov Syndicate. In Skarg, the Gruul clans consider the destruction of Ravnica their responsibility and theirs alone. In Korozda, the fighters of the Golgari swarm are eager to fill their corpse gardens with whomever's at hand. And in Parhelion 2, the Boros Legion defend what is theirs. But the leader of the cult on Ravnica is intends to sacrifice Jace Beleren for the final sacrifice for power, but he's stopped by Ral and Vraska. Dude monologues because bad guys, and he doesn't realize in the middle of his monologue that wait a minute, there were three of you. Where just as Kaya teleports in and snags Jace, planeswalks with him to Fairy's home in Dominaria. And then Nid Mizzet comes along and eats the guy. Who was constantly talking about a comet. But Kaya comes back with Jace. Kaya wished she had seen the cult leader get eaten by Nid Mizzet. And Kaya wants to know what his last words were. And Ral is like, more comet nonsense. Yeah, he says, you don't understand why every crazy person in the city is obsessed with the comet. It's just a giant piece of ice. And everyone just looks at him and he's like, what? And then it dawns on Zarek. The comet is Merit Lodge. The Queen of Madness, the Icebound Mother, the Ancient Scourge, Merit Lodge. Looks like Ravnica might be in for an Ice Age! And that is where the issue ends. I'll say, I would make that, I would have that same thought. It's like, oh, shit. So, yeah. I would make that same mistake and didn't even register. Like, big piece of ice. Oh. Anyway, moving on to our last book for the moment. We've got Crush and Lobo, number 5. Where we left off in Crush and Lobo, Crush's identity had been discovered by the prison, which Lobo had busted out and trapped her in. And she'd been hired to track down their recent escapee, her father, all around Bastich, Lobo. So, the plan, step 1, find a prison issue ride. Step 2, find Lobo. Before the bomb electrocutes his running crisp. Step 2A, find better ride. And yeah, she's got a time limit too. But she basically, follows his trail. Cigar, which you can pretty tell by the cigar butts. And a field of cigar smoking alien babies in tears. But Crush does manage to get a clue and heads to a planet. Well, turns out that the ruler of a planet, what was called expletive, yeah, well, his weapon of choice, the king's weapon of choice, a flute which calls forth space lizards. Here's what the ruler of planet Excalibur doesn't know, though. Space lizards love Crush. I mean, they do. They seriously do. And so she turns them on, the ruler. Gets some answers from him. Further tracks him down and arrives at a woman's house. That woman claims to be madly in love with Lobo. Crush is trying to explain she has the worst taste in men and just how horrible Lobo is. But she swears that Lobo didn't tell her anything. She doesn't know where he's going. Of course, Crush stays behind and listens in, and of course, Lobo calls. But one of the things she imparts on her is that, by loving Lobo, all she's done is make herself vulnerable. Explaining that you think the people you love can't hurt you, but really, that's when they get you. Though she says that's when we get you. Thinking obviously about Kate. But yeah, Crush waits and eavesdrops in on a phone call and manages to find out figure out just where Lobo is. Space Vegas. And so she's gonna send him some money. But she's got a ton of text messages from Kate. Who wants to talk about things, but yeah. I would say that, well, given the fact that Crush is in space and, Katie's on Earth, it's, at the moment, not entirely plausible, but, But yeah, off to Space Vegas. And that is where the issue ends. Which this really has been a fun series so far. And, well, I do hope that Crush manages to work things out with Katie. They're a cute couple. And Crush deserves to be happy. Anyway, let's do it for now. As always, feel free to like, share, and subscribe. Links to my Facebook, Twitter, Patreon, and PayPal can be found in the description box down below. This is Rock and Roll Spock signing off saying, live long and rock hard.